Okay, so let's move on to the ranged units. Obviously, China is famous for the repeating crossbows, so let's start with that. What are your guys' thoughts about that?
I mean, the first word that comes to mind is balance. Because I mean, trying to balance a unit like that, it would be difficult because on the one hand, it would be very enjoyable to just cut down many units with a unit like a repeating crossbow, and so trying to get this sort of balance between um, it being obviously too strong, but also being completely irrelevant and not fun to use, especially if it's difficult, if it has some kind of I'm trying to think something like that, like for example, heavy artillery, where you can set it up and you can dismantle it and stuff. Um, that sort of wind up time almost it sometimes puts people off that kind of thing. So I know it's a very difficult one because we don't have any units to look at that are even similar in Arena at the moment. And like we said about the infantry and the cavalry, we can look at what's already in the game and see how that's changed over time. But it's a completely different ball game with the repeating crossbows.
Astolfo, I think you want to say something?
I didn't play too much ranged in arena, so um, I'll probably let these two talk more on this segment.
Fine. The other guy, Shlomi.
Okay, let me chime in there. Um, I think crossbows are a good way to demonstrate armor penetration. That's what crossbows are about. It's not that much about range or rate of fire. Of course, with repeating crossbows, it would be rate of fire. But you can minimize the effect by making smaller unit models, smaller unit sizes. You can change the arc of fire, just like with slingers who have amazing range. But if you stand too close to your own units, you end up shooting your own guys in the head. And third of all, rate of fire, of course. Um, Slower shots, but pick your shots like when enemies are already in melee and you can deal great damage. Another mechanic which could be implemented in the new Total War Arena, as I see it, would be some reload station, just like the respawn station, where you could actually or should actually refill your ammunition. That could also tone down ranged, but in my opinion, it didn't seem too strong as of yet.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
just
as a
thinking,
ranged main, please don't. Okay, go on, George. Then I'll
yeah,
put in my.
just thinking about what you said with the reload, as in getting your ammunition back. You could also balance something like a repeating crossbow with like a downtime, because obviously the nature of archers and stuff is that you would be able to like continue firing at like a steady rate, whereas something like a repeating crossbow, it's almost like firing a few bolts. Well, I don't know how many. That would be a balance issue or a historical issue, and then spending some time reloading it. So they could be some form of balance in the sense that they're good, like almost hit and run sort kind of units. But again, it's how they'd like to implement that, and especially if they added normal crossbows rather than repeating crossbows as well. You said about the big thing would be armor penetration, but then as a javelin player, I sort of see where would the place of javelins go if you have a unit that obviously crossbow is going to be longer range, just the nature of it. You can shoot a bolt further than you can throw a javelin. It'd be interesting to see how they keep javelins even relevant.
Okay, well, let me tell you, George, because I, as a ranged main, obviously, know these unit types in and out. So yeah, obviously you have a lot of balancing factors. The armor penetration and damage, the reload, and they would need to introduce a new like magazine mechanic essentially, because yeah, there is no one steady rate of fire, as in you fire a shot each X seconds. You do pew 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 pew. Your magazine is out, and then you reload, and then reload. Okay, pew 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 pew, and reload again. So yeah, it would be something like hit and run, or push in, get in a position where you can shoot, empty your magazine, and retreat as you reload. essentially, and you maybe would have another bar, something like fatigue, but it would be just, a reload bar. After you empty your magazine, you start reloading, or after you just stop shooting, you start reloading. Once it's full, you can start shooting again, or maybe it's just gonna refill it steadily, something like World of Tanks, although I don't remember how it was in World of Tanks. In World of Tanks, you just can reload the entire magazine at once, and that was it. And
It'll be like an
the reload didn't change depending on whether you used all of your ammunition within that magazine or not. But that's just like too much into details. Let's just leave it at that. Magazine feature in some shape or form. Wait, let me finish. You have firing arcs. The question, George, how we would differentiate, because obviously range will be longer, but firing arcs would be much flatter, I imagine, because you can't really shoot a crossbow bolt up in the sky like we can an arrow, or we can throw a javelin. So javelin plays would be be closer to combat and throw javelins over the heads of your allies into enemies. They have very good accuracy. And they can, easily avoid friendly fire while still being, in the safety of their own infantry line. While crossbows wouldn't be able to do it. They cannot shoot an arc like javelins. So that's how javelins would be kept relevant. You would need to risk more in order to deal that crossbow damage. But if you were to get into such a position, which will be difficult to find, well, you reap the benefits. And obviously, it will be still flatter than slingers, I imagine. So repeating crossbows would probably have even bigger difficulties in fighting firing arcs. So they would have like a really specific niche where they can output a shit ton of damage due to their magazines, but due to their shitty firing angles, they would have very limited uses. Which kind of sounds like it would suck, but then that's kind of how crossbows work and how you introduce a new unit type that is still unique and just doesn't feel like, sling is just different, slightly different. Okay, Shlomi, so what did you want to say?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention would be mobility. How about if those crossbowmen weren't just as fast, and easier to catch out? That would be also a good way to kind of tone him down.
I don't think so, to be honest. Like the speed should be kept about the same as every other ranged unit. I mean, ranged units is their thing, that they're usually heavily armored, and if they are, that would be, kind of a special, unique to one particular unit or so. Like you had some heavier archers in the Greek tree, but even those heavier archers were still pretty nimble. Probably due to rapid advance, but still. Yeah, and obviously you have the other factors such as accuracy and rate of fire. I mean, rate of fire we already discussed, but yeah, accuracy, damage, all that kind of stuff. It's just balance them out against other ranged unit types, and you'll be fine. I still think there's a lot of place that I can create a new unique ranged unit. We can also see introduction of matchlocks in the future with Japan, but well, we are here to talk about China. And anyone wants to add anything about ranged units?
I would like to say that one of the niches that they could look into would be the tankier ranged unit. Maybe it doesn't put out fire as often. Still doing the same damage as a respectable archer or something. You could even be generous with an arc, but make it the tankier unit, because I know in Three Kingdoms a lot of the crossbow units are either in medium or heavy armor, especially as you go down the tier tree. They get heavier and heavier. One of them even has like big tower shields on their back.
Sounds like Pavis crossbowman kind of. Yeah, that could be a thing. Just as I said, like in the Greek tree where you have very tanky archers on tier 7 and 9, right, and then on tier 8 and 10 you have the faster ones. So that could be a thing. Also, you mentioned, the hybrid between archers and spearmen. that could show up in the tree, maybe as a premium unit instead of a regular tech tree unit.
I would probably lean them towards. I would make a glaive a hybrid weapon. I don't think I would give it the full anti-cav, because just from a balance perspective, you probably shouldn't be, a ranged unit that can also decimate an entire cavalry line.
Yeah, but then the archer aspect would be much weaker of it, so it's like...
True. Yeah, you're right. You could definitely balance it.
Yeah, like that basically comes down to numbers, like how much damage, range, etc. you will give them. So yeah, you can definitely balance it out. Also, obviously Chinese used archers, but that doesn't mean they will have them in the game, because, for example, Romans also used archers, and they don't have archers in their tech tree, apart from 2 premium units, maybe even only 1. So yeah, only as a premium unit. But then again, we had those issues with premium units, as in give a unique unit type of a premium unit to a faction that isn't supposed to have them, and you can break the balance, like with the Rhetarius Gladiators and Germanicus. Like, Roman commanders were not designed to lead light infantry, and then if they do, they're kind of broken.